Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and today we are checking out ActiveSky in Microsoft Flight Simulator and seeing if it's actually worth the price, so stick around. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator or simply interested in supporting the channel, please consider joining us on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides as well as any future releases that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below. All right, you guys, so let's talk about this. So first off, ActiveSky is now released and available. You can find it on Just Flight, SimMark, and a couple other locations. I got mine from Just Flight. It is $29.99 for the Microsoft Flight Simulator version of the software. Now, let's set the expectations for today's video. First thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be launching ActiveSky. We are at Kilo Lima Hotel X-Ray as our starting airport. I picked a location that specifically had high winds, meaning excess of 20 knots. Okay, we are in the Cessna 414A. I used the Cessna 414 from FlySimWare because I wanted to pick a third-party aircraft that had a good reputation of a solid flight model. Now, I will tell you that if we look over at the windsock to the left, Microsoft Flight Simulator, in its ingeniosity, put us at a tailwind takeoff. So we'll probably just go ahead and roll with it, and we'll just keep the parameters the same. But yeah, you can actually see the windsock on our right showing the same thing. So. Oh well, it happened. We'll move on. So the next thing is that we're going to do is we're going to do three steps actually. First, we're going to see what ActiveSky looks like, and I'm going to show you guys. We're going to switch modes, and hopefully you guys will also find a mode that best suits you. I'm going to bring ActiveSky into view for you guys. So here is the sim depiction mode. This is pretty critical. You can see live weather is active. Now if we come in here, we should not see live weather active here. Oh, we do. So let's drop that. And actually, I think that's incorrect. Stand by, because I have it set to passive. So if we go to Sim Defect, if we go to ActiveSky Preset Weather Enabled, we should see Microsoft Flight Simulator's weather change very rapidly here in a second. Boom. So this is the way that ActiveSky would depict our current weather conditions. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what those weather conditions are. So if we come over here, there you guys go. We have cloudy. We have, let's see here, 3,000, direction 70, speed 20 knots, temperature at 6. 10 plus miles, let's see here, it looks like below 9,000 if I'm reading that correctly. There's our altimeter pressure, and here we go down over here. And it tells us what the how the weather is being depicted. Okay, so that's the first step. But you have another way of doing this, and we'll talk about the second way in doing it first. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off just like this. We're going to experience the weather as ActiveSky is producing it and see what the impacts of the aircraft are. Then we're going to reset, disable ActiveSky completely, let Microsoft Flight Simulator run it, and see what we get. And then final step is I'm going to show you guys how to make Microsoft Flight Simulator generate the scenery, but have ActiveSky control all of the variables, wind, turbulence, etc. Okay? So there are actually 3 modes to this, and you may find which one's better. And then at the very end of the video, we will show some of the really cool features to ActiveSky that don't exist, that make using it much, much better. And then we will show some of the things, or we'll talk about my final thoughts. Because honestly, I'm going to give you guys a heads up, I'm a little indifferent at the moment on whether or not ActiveSky should be purchased. The last thing that I want to mention here is that we are on the latest release. As of this morning, April the 20th, ActiveSky updated to a new release. So it does update very quickly, so let's keep that in mind. I am keeping the webcam and beam eye tracker, which, by the way, if you guys are interested in, there's a link down in the description for it. Very awesome eye and face tracking software using any standard webcam. But I have that disabled at the moment because I want any shakes, shimmers, etc. that you guys see to be a result of the aircraft and not the camera. I may turn them on once we're up and airborne. So off we go. So again, keep in mind this is a tailwind takeoff of excess of 20 knots. So this could be interesting. I don't even know if this aircraft's rated for that. I'm sure it is, but... Alright, so what I'm primarily interested in here is the impact of the weather. Turbulence, shakes, wind shears, wind direction, what that impact has over the surface of the aircraft. So I'm really not noticing anything. That's really crazy to speak of. So right out of the gate, in our first scenario here for ActiveSky, I'm not seeing anything that makes me think that, wow, this is something that we absolutely have to have. And I don't think that I'm missing any steps or anything like that. So let's see what we can do here. I don't think that I do want to make sure. Nope. Okay. Okay. So now let's go ahead. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Now what we're going to do is we're going to disable ActiveSky. So I can do that just from here. So ActiveSky is now closed. We're going to restart this scenario and take off again and see what Microsoft Flight Simulator generates based on the conditions that were specified. And we should see live weather enabled here. Yep, so we're back on live weather. You can see the conditions we've got. Still put us on a tailwind takeoff, so I might have just selected the wrong damn runway, but we got to keep the conditions the same, so let me lock the camera. There we go. Off we go. All right, so immediately I am actually already finding it more difficult to fly in Microsoft Flight Simulator than with ActiveSky. Remember that we have our wind speed set in excess of 20 knots. Is what our parameter was. Alright, so what did you guys see, if anything? Have you guys noticed any difference between the two weather modes? So far, any impact and difficulty that I'm feeling is actually from Microsoft Flight Simulator and not ActiveSky. Okay, so right off the bat, I do also want you guys to know that I will remember to put a text at the beginning of the ActiveSky segment. ActiveSky is set to what they define as realism mode, which should be as realistic to real-world flight as possible. So I'm a little concerned about that and thinking that, unfortunately, it looks like Microsoft Flight Simulator may win this one. Now, I want to show you guys one more thing that that ActiveSky is able to do. So I'm going to relaunch ActiveSky. In the meantime, we're actually going to restart our scenario. I am relaunching ActiveSky. Okay, and let's see what we've got here so far. So you can see it's updating. It's downloading the segments. Still taking off with that nice tailwind. But I want to show you guys something. So this is as we saw it before. But if we go to weather control, you can go to sim depiction mode, live weather, and you guys are going to see this. So we're going to go into passive mode. Passive depiction mode has been enabled. Live weather mode will be enabled in both ASFS, so ActiveSky Flight Simulator, and the simulator, so Microsoft Flight Simulator. Weather depiction will be supplied by MSFS Live Weather, while air effects and all other ASFS functionality remains active. So basically, the scenery picture is now being generated through Microsoft Flight Simulator, but everything that we feel and experience in the aircraft will be generated by ActiveSky. So this is another great way. If you guys are thinking that the sim looks better in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but you like the effects of ActiveSky, well, they've thought of that. So in this passive mode, again, the picture is being generated by Microsoft Flight Simulator. The environment and external effects on the aircraft are being generated by ActiveSky. So let's go ahead and get airborne here one more time. Alrighty. Oh, I think I moved my damn mouse. What happened? There we go. Okay. It's those parking brakes. Let's rock and roll. Now, interestingly enough, this is the most difficult takeoff that we have seen yet. That is turbulence. That is shaking. That is what I would expect to see. And funny enough, the passive mode seems to be where it's at. You can see the aircraft being bounced and kicked and turned quite a bit now. Yeah. So in the passive mode, and where the weather depiction is generated by Microsoft Flight Simulator, but all other effects from ActiveSky are handled by ActiveSky, it seems to be the best, and there is a very significant difference. Okay, so this is all very, very interesting. I'm really kind of curious to hear what you guys are thinking about all this now. So let's talk about some of the things that I do agree with ActiveSky that I like about it and things that I don't. So first off, coming over here, I think my favorite feature right off the bat is just the search feature. Being able to simply search by different variables, like for example, if we want to go somewhere with a heavy thunderstorm, there's a list of everything currently having heavy thunderstorms. If we want precipitation to be snow, okay, you have all your places that have snow. So that part is really awesome. I love the search functionality. The other thing is custom sets. I'll tell you guys right now. You can go to a location here, like let's say we want to do one from Tucson. I can right click on this, add new weather custom preset. It walks through. You can either set it to the current MEDAR, or you can work through it page by page and set your different weather variables. And then at the end of it, you're able to save that preset. So that makes it very, very nice and very handy. So I do really like those particular features. Sorry, I got distracted. So that part's really awesome. There's a lot of customization, a lot of options you can do. The other thing that I want to make very, very critical to you guys, if you come over here to the options section, there are a ton of options that you need to go through to really get the most out of ActiveSky. What I did is I selected this one here, which is realism mode. Okay, now when you select realism mode, you guys can see that you need to make sure that you restart ActiveSky. Now, what I haven't been able to determine is whether or not that you need to do this on every single launch. But that is something that should be taken into consideration. We'll have to read the documentation for more information on that. But there is a ton of stuff that can be set here. If we can go to your different warnings, you can go to audio options, visibility options, wind options, and effects. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff that you can do here. So in order to get the most out of ActiveSky, it is going to require some legwork. So you need to make sure that you're taking that into consideration when you ask, is it worth it or not? Now, coming down to our final segment here of what my final thoughts are after initial use. So if you're just skipping straight ahead and wondering what my final thoughts are, let's talk about at the very least the test parameters that were done. We did the exact same location using live weather in both conditions. So we picked our location, which in this case is Kilo Lima Hotel X-Ray, and we let first ActiveSky do all of the work. It generated the scenery, it generated the weather effects, all the environment, everything. The ActiveSky was 100% in control of the weather. I was unenthused. I felt that the cloud layer was actually pretty flat. I didn't particularly care for the texturing and the way that the clouds were modeled. They looked very, unfortunately, X-Plane 11 without add-ons, okay? Which is fine. This isn't to bash Laminar by any means. It just, from Microsoft Flight Simulator, we've obviously come to expect a higher standard of graphic quality, scenery quality. Okay, that's probably, it's still to this day, the biggest draw to Microsoft Flight Simulator over any of the others is the scenery. You can't top it. Okay, then what we did is we repeated the exact same conditions, did a takeoff using Microsoft Flight Simulator Live Weather in with ActiveSky disabled. And I have to say that also, obviously, the visuals were better in Microsoft Flight Simulator's live generation, but also the impacts on the aircraft was better. The turbulence was better. The shaking seemed quite a bit better. But the one that really kicked the pie here is actually kind of something I wasn't expecting. And it still, to this moment, doesn't make sense to me on why this is happening. As we saw in this last segment, if you under weather control, sim depiction mode, there is a passive option. What passive option essentially does is that all of the weather depiction, everything that you see inside the sim, is handled by Microsoft Flight Simulator. So you get those cool Microsoft Flight Simulator visual characters, but all of the other aspects, the turbulence, the wind, the temperature, all of that, and those environmental creations are done through ActiveSky. So essentially the only thing that Microsoft Flight Simulator is doing is generating the visuals, and ActiveSky is handling everything else. And the reason why this was very odd is because there was a significant difference between the passive mode with ActiveSky turned on and the Microsoft Flight Simulator default weather system in live mode. Live mode, as I told you, was much better than the ActiveSky default mode. I did not really find the default mode to be particularly enthusing or enticing. However, the passive mode I actually loved. The flying was far more difficult. The turbulence was far more reactive. Remember that, for those of you who have already watched the video, the winds were excess of 20 knots. So even in a Cessna 414 at 20 knot wind speeds, you're going to notice that and you're going to feel that in the airplane. And so in the passive mode, there was a significant difference. So bringing it all in now, is it worth $30 US? So first keep in mind that the software launched 2 days ago and it's already received its first update. That's the first thing to consider here, is that this is very new. The ActiveSky developers have always been known for updating their software rather quickly, and each update always brought pretty significant changes. So that's the first thing to remember. They do update often. 2, we're on day 2 of ActiveSky being released, so take this review with a grain of salt. We will be doing another one next Saturday. We will do another review of ActiveSky a week from now, assuming there have been further updates to the software. And I will have further time to go through the documentation and fine-tune it and tweak it. However, I still stand firm that if that is a necessity, the options realism mode, which is what we were using, should make it as hard as humanly possible, correct? That's at least my thoughts on it. When I hear realism mode, I want realistic flight. So think about that too. So we'll be doing a follow-up review, so if you guys are wanting to wait, hold off on that. It will be coming. And then finally, the last thing here is that the passive mode was so much more significant, as we just discussed. So in conjunction with Microsoft Flight Simulator, it made a very pleasurable experience and a very exciting performance inside the sim. Now, some of the features that I really enjoy about it: having access to the weather conditions right off the bat based on where you are. Awesome. There are plenty of tools that do it for free. The map condition, being able to simply click on an area, right click, and create your own custom weather conditions for that zone. Again, very cool. I'll be playing around with this further and seeing if there's further benefits to using this than some of the other weather surfaces that are free that do similar things. Okay, and then finally, I think my favorite is honestly the search window. being able to search for a specific zone based on the weather that you're wanting to fly in that particular time without having to go to Google or anything like that. Again, very awesome feature, but again, I do believe there are some freeware softwares out there. But you're talking about multiple softwares that have to be brought in together to do what this one does in one. So again, that's going to be dollar to value to you. Is it worth the money to bring all that to you? Now, let's say for a quick moment that you were just looking for the weather injection. That is it. You want nothing else. You care about none of the other features, none of the customization options. At its current position, would I consider it to be worth $30 US? My answer is no. It is exciting. It did make a difference. I do not feel that it is $30 better for just the weather injection. Specify that, please. Just the weather injection, I do not feel it is worth the $30 US. However, if you enjoy all these other features that I have mentioned as I do, well, then we come closer. But as far as the weather injection on its own, if ActiveSky was not here, would I miss it? Probably not. Okay. Is it a game-changing, game-breaking, this is absolutely the best weather service ever? No. Could it be? Yes. Again, now we're coming back to they do update frequently. We'll see what comes down. There are far more options and settings that I have yet to dive into. So with that in mind, there's still time for that opinion to change. But as of day 2 of release of ActiveSky, you guys have my final thoughts for day 2. And my day 2 thoughts are, it is not game changing. It is not game breaking. It is immersive enhancing a bit in the passive mode. In the depiction mode, where ActiveSky takes care of everything, I did not like it. In the depiction, the weather depiction on screen, I did not feel was particularly good. I think that the texturing was done very flat, very... Yeah. I don't know how else to put it. But the passive mode, I thoroughly enjoyed. So you guys take that as you will. Let me know what your thoughts are. Remember, we will have another review, assuming there are updates, 1 week from now. I will be diving further into the settings to find out if there is a best scenario setting situation, or at least settings that I favor over the realism mode. We'll see. But I'll let you guys know how that all goes 1 week from now. Let me know if you've already purchased it, what tricks and tips that you have for the community right now. And if you haven't, let me know what you thought of this video and what the different scenarios brought. And if you have it already, and still let me know what you guys thought of the different scenarios and what your interaction and experience with ActiveSky is thus far. This was a very, very... anticipated software. I was very, very excited to hear of its release. It's not that I'm necessarily disappointed. I just think that it doesn't meet the expectations yet. All right. As always, guys, stay safe and healthy. I'll see you in the next one.